All right, welcome back everyone to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting one to dig into today.
Yeah, looking forward to this one.
It's something we all do, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
Learn from examples, right? Like think about it. When you're trying to figure out, I don't know, a new recipe,
Yeah,
understand some concept at work, maybe learn a new game, like there's always examples involved.
absolutely.
And speaking of examples, you, the listener,
Yeah,
sent in some really fascinating research.
I know. I was impressed.
A paper that, well, it asks a really interesting question.
Okay, yeah.
When we're studying examples to try to learn something,
Mm.
are we better off looking at ones that are similar
Okay,
or ones that show a little more variety?
that is the question.
It is the question.
Yeah, the paper is titled, Learning from Comparing Multiple Examples on the Dilemma of Similar or Different.
Right.
And it really gets into how we can really make the most of studying examples. And it's not as straightforward as you might think.
Not at all. And that's what we're going to do in this deep dive. We're going to unpack all this research for you.
That's right.
We want to understand what the science says about how to effectively study examples
Yeah,
and hopefully shed some light on that whole similar versus different debate.
it's a big one.
Yeah, so let's start with the basics.
Okay.
Why is looking at more than one example
Right.
even beneficial in the first place?
Well, the research is pretty clear on this.
Okay.
When you compare multiple examples, it's way more powerful for learning than just looking at one in isolation.
Right, right.
The act of comparing helps us build these mental frameworks.
Yeah.
The paper calls them schemas,
Demons.
so by seeing these different instances,
Yeah.
we can start to really identify those underlying patterns
Right.
and understand these concepts, on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
And the paper even says comparison is a general learning process that can promote deep relational learning.
I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's like seeing a concept illustrated
Yes.
from different angles.
That's absolutely.
It helps you kind of grasp the core idea.
Yeah.
But just having a lot of examples, though,
Right.
isn't the whole story?
That's true.
The way they relate to each other, it really matters.
It matters a lot.
Yeah.
And the key to effective learning, through examples, it lies in how those examples vary.
Okay.
And that's where, traditional thinking, it can be a little
Too simple.
too simple,
Right.
The paper actually challenges that usual approach,
Yep.
categorizing features as either surface,
Right.
the irrelevant details, or structural, like the important underlying principles.
Right. So it's like, good examples might look different on the surface,
Well,
but
yeah.
they share that same fundamental structure.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the alternative idea that this research puts forward?
Okay, so they suggest a more nuanced
Okay.
and I think practical way to think about it. Critical versus uncritical aspects. Okay, so a critical aspect is, well, anything that you, the learner,
Right.
needs to understand at that moment.
In that moment.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Those critical aspects can be what we traditionally think of as surface features,
Uh-huh.
or those deeper structural elements,
Okay.
depending on what you already know.
Wait, so a surface feature can be critical
It can.
for understanding.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Okay, so imagine you're trying to, learn what counts as a vegetable,
Okay, sure.
right? You might initially think that all vegetables are, savory and they grow in the ground.
Right, like carrots and potatoes.
Exactly. But then the sweetness of a tomato,
Yeah.
which you might think is just a surface characteristic,
Yeah.
it becomes critical in understanding that a tomato, despite being sweet and growing above ground,
Right.
is also a fruit, right? So the variation in sweetness and where it grows, that becomes key to refining your understanding.
So it's not inherent to the example itself, but it depends on
It does.
what I'm trying to figure
Your
out.
understanding, exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
understanding kind of develops as you identify and compare
Mhm.
these critical aspects, right,
Right.
across the examples that you encounter.
Yeah.
And this leads us to the fundamental role of variation and invariance in learning.
Okay, variation and invariance.
Yes,
Those sound like very sciencey terms.
they are a little bit.
Break that down for us in the context of learning from examples.
Okay, so at its core, variation theory, it says we learn by noticing what changes against a backdrop of what stays the same,
Yeah.
right? That's why comparing different examples is so powerful.
Right.
It highlights the variations that teach us.
Go.
And the paper, it draws on this theory And it outlines 4 key patterns of how variation and invariance work in effective learning.
4 patterns. All right, let's hear them.
Okay, so the first one is contrast.
Contrast.
And this is about experiencing different values or features of a particular aspect to really understand a specific value.
Got it.
Right. So think back to the vegetable example.
Good.
To really understand what savory means, it helps to experience things that are sweet or bitter.
Right. So it's like understanding something by seeing what it isn't.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second pattern?
Okay. Number 2 is separation.
Separation. Okay.
And this involves focusing on one specific aspect by keeping everything else constant while that aspect changes.
So like isolating a single variable.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're trying to understand the concept of pitch in music, you might listen to a series of notes that are all the same volume, played on the same instrument, but each one has a different pitch. Right. So by keeping the volume and the instrument the same, you can really isolate and focus on that variation in pitch.
Okay. Makes sense. What about the third pattern?
Okay. Number 3 is fusion.
Fusion. Okay.
And this comes into play when you need to discern multiple critical aspects that vary at the same time.
Simultaneously,
Let's say you're learning to identify different types of birds.
Okay.
Like a sparrow. Okay.
All right,
To really grasp what defines a sparrow, you need to see examples where the size, the beak shape, the behaviors, the song all vary together.
Right. So you need to see all those features.
All of them.
To form the complete picture.
Exactly. Or think about learning to identify a specific type of car, right? You need to see the headlights, the grille shape, the body style to really tell it apart from other similar cars.
Right. Okay. So seeing the whole package with multiple key features changing at the same time.
Right.
And that helps you kind of see how they all contribute
to the overall concept. Yeah.
All right. That makes sense. What's that final pattern?
Okay. So the last one is generalization.
Generalization. Okay.
And this is about applying your understanding to a wide range of contexts by seeing lots of different examples.
Got it.
So once you understand the core characteristics of, let's say, a chair through contrast, separation, maybe even fusion, you then need to see tons of different chairs, like armchairs, office chairs, stools, park benches,
Right, to really get...
To really generalize that concept of chair.
Yeah, okay.
And recognize it in all its forms.
So we've got contrast, separation, fusion, generalization. That's...
the mouthful.
Yeah, but it gives us this really interesting framework for thinking about how to use examples.
Yeah.
Is there an order that we should encounter these in?
Yeah, so the paper actually suggests a logical progression.
Oh, yeah.
It's best to start with contrast and separation to really pinpoint and understand
critical aspect.
Right, each individual one.
Okay.
Then you move to fusion to see how they all work together in these complex real-world examples.
Right.
And then finally, generalization, to broaden your understanding.
Makes sense. Build the foundation and then apply it.
Exactly.
So the paper uses a specific mathematical example to illustrate these patterns, something about the altitude of a triangle.
The altitude of a triangle, yeah. They use it to really illustrate how these patterns work. They explain how you might use positive examples where the line is an altitude and negative examples where it isn't.
Right.
To create contrast and help learners discern those critical aspects, like the fact that an altitude must pass through a vertex.
Okay, and how would fusion come into play with the triangle example?
Okay, so fusion would involve showing, altitudes in different types of triangles.
Okay.
Maybe an acute, a right-angled, an obtuse triangle. Where the vertex it comes from, the opposite side it's perpendicular to, and the orientation of the triangle, it all varies. Right? So it helps you see how all those critical aspects interact to define the altitude in different contexts.
And then generalization would be...
seeing even more triangles.
Right, all different kinds.
With their altitudes drawn.
To solidify the understanding.
Exactly.
That it applies to all types of triangles.
All of them.
No matter their shape or orientation.
Precisely.
Gotcha. So this systematic variation, targeting those critical aspects,
it's key.
Is what leads to a really solid understanding.
And flexible understanding.
And there's another angle they discuss, context.
Context,
How does that play into learning from examples?
So the research suggests that keeping the overall context, like the surrounding information or the story, relatively consistent, while you're varying those critical aspects can be really helpful.
So in our triangle example, all the examples are presented as geometry problems within the same chapter of a textbook.
Exactly. That helps you focus on what's actually changing.
Right, those critical features.
And not get distracted by all this different stuff.
By different scenarios.
Right.
Makes sense. Now, we all come to learning, obviously, with
different backgrounds.
Different backgrounds.
Different knowledge.
Yeah, the paper touches on how our prior knowledge influences how we learn.
Yeah, it has a significant impact.
So something that's a major learning point for a beginner might be obvious to someone who's more experienced.
Absolutely. Think about the triangle altitude example, right? Someone just starting out with geometry might really need to see that fundamental difference between a line that goes through a vertex and one that doesn't.
Right.
That vertex aspect might be the most critical thing for them to grasp.
Okay, yeah.
But someone with a solid understanding of basic geometric shapes,
they don't need to see that.
They might take that for granted.
Okay.
For them, the critical aspect might be understanding the perpendicularity of the altitude to the base.
Okay. Yeah.
Or how the altitude relates to the area of different triangles, you know?
That's a really key insight. So effective example study isn't
one size fits all.
No.
No, it really needs to take into account where the learner is starting from.
So what would you say is the most important message from this research? For the listener out there who's trying to learn something new using examples.
Okay, well, the central idea is this. When you're studying examples, don't just passively look them over. Actively engage with them. By trying to identify what you need to learn.
Right.
What are the critical aspects that are unclear to you? And then consciously seek out or even create examples that strategically vary those specific aspects while keeping other potentially distracting elements consistent. That intentional act of comparison, focusing on what you need to discern, that's what's going to lead to a much deeper and more lasting understanding.
So we've explored how studying multiple examples is so valuable, for building our understanding through comparison.
Right.
But the real power lies not just in the number. But in how they vary.
It's key.
The traditional idea of surface versus deep structure. It's less helpful than focusing on what's critical.
Absolutely.
For you.
In that moment.
In that moment to learn.
Exactly.
And effective learning happens.
When we experience those critical aspects through those patterns of variation and invariance, contrast, separation, fusion, and generalization, starting by isolating individual aspects and then seeing how they all work together.
Right, is a different context.
Ideally with a consistent backdrop.
Yeah, and your existing knowledge.
It plays a huge role.
Really influences what aspects become critical for you.
A huge
By being more thoughtful. And deliberate.
About the examples you choose. You can really boost your learning effectiveness.
And unlock those aha moments, those light bulb moments.
And that leads to a really important question for you to ponder, listener. The next time you're faced with learning something new, whether it's a complex theory or a practical skill, take a moment to think about the core ideas. What are the roadblocks or sticking points for you? Then, consider how you might find or even create examples that highlight those critical aspects through variation and comparison. What might be critical for your understanding in this moment. That mindful and targeted approach to studying examples could be the key to unlocking a much deeper and more meaningful understanding.
No matter the field.
In any field.
You're diving into so much to think about.
So much.
Really appreciate your insights.
Happy to be here.
This has been another deep dive.
Until next time.
See y'all soon.
Take care. Bye.